Welcome to Executive Leaders Radio, your spot in the corner office, the radio show where executives share their secrets to success. Executive Leaders Radio.
You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio, broadcasts from the law offices of Perturi Law in Tysons, Virginia. This is your host, Herb Cohen, with my co-host, Joe Applebaum, Potomac Companies, John Yetman, Association for Enterprise Growth, and David Kunzman, Perturi Law. And let's see, we have a great lineup of guests for you in our show today, including Blake Allison, founder and CEO of LifeCents, followed by Jason Miller, CEO and president of Zyedge, Mercedes Lemp, executive director of My Sister's Place, and Robert Peck, CEO and co-founder of Commonwealth Joe Coffee Roasters. Let's get to know our first guest, Blake Allison, founder and CEO of LifeCents. Blake, what is LifeCents? What are you guys doing?
Good morning. LifeCents is a financial health and wellness app that helps people make better financial decisions, and this is a B2B2C SaaS.
And how large or how small is the organization?
We have 10 full-time employees and a development firm of about 12.
And where are you from originally?
Virginia Beach, Virginia.
And how many brothers and sisters?
Older brother, older sister.
Older brother, older sister. And how young were you when you started coming up with ideas?
As young as I can remember. I remember always rearranging the furniture in my room and kind of pridefully showing my parents that, yet another weekend I've moved stuff around. I just always felt like
actually in the green room you were telling us that you're always trying to figure out a better way, a more efficient way to do things, to lay things out. Is that true?
Yeah, I think it holds true today. I think there's always a better way. I always want to build a better mousetrap.
And aside from, what was the next thing you did? How young were you and started making money?
One of the first ideas was actually painting house numbers on the street curbs in front of houses. There was a city ordinance in Virginia Beach that it was a requirement. Most people didn't know that, so my friend and I went door to door.
Whose idea was that?
Mine. Figures.
And what kind of sports did you play?
Love playing soccer, but my passion's playing tennis.
Singles or doubles?
Singles.
Why?
I like the there's more court, more control, more variety of shots.
What's that have to do with your being the founder and CEO of this organization called LifeCents?
Well, I mean, you have to, a lot of responsibility is put on your shoulders in singles, and you make the decisions and make the shots that win or lose the points, and I think the same thing applies to the business.
I just wanted to make sure I understood. David?
What was going on at home around the age of 5?
5, my parents divorced.
And you indicated in the green room you grew up with limited means. You were raised by your mother. And what does that have to do with what you do now?
So my mom was a school teacher raising us 3 kids. We definitely had limited means. As a teacher, I certainly saw her passion for helping people, mentoring people. But I think the combination of that passion to help other people, as well as realizing that there's a real need to help people achieve financial security, was part of what helped me create this idea for LifeCents.
So it's both. You learn caring, you also learn teaching through her.
I would think so, yeah.
John?
What influence did your stepfather have on you?
So my parents remarried when I was 10, or my mom remarried when I was 10. My stepfather at one point worked for the federal government, and interestingly, for a guy who likes to spend more times hunting and fishing and being out in the woods, he wound up starting his own business. And certainly that was gave me a great perspective, and I saw he did very well for someone that did not have.
Did you ever help him? Did you ever help him with his business?
Actually, I did. I mean,
how young were you when you started helping him with his business?
Probably from day one. So,
what was his business?
It was a environmental consulting business.
And what'd you do? How were you able to help him?
I'm a pretty good writer, so very often I would help him craft letters.
How young were you when you were doing this?
Maybe even as young as junior high.
So in junior high school, you're helping your stepdad write letters for his business. You think that had any influence on you?
Well, it certainly exposed me to
some business thinking, didn't it?
Business thinking. Certainly, he dealt a lot with federal laws like the Clean
How'd that
Water
make
Act.
you feel, the fact that your stepdad was depending on you to write these letters and this marketing stuff?
I'm quite honored, actually. I mean, certainly.
You liked people depending on you, didn't you?
Yeah. I mean, it's great to support the people around you for sure.
Interesting. There's a young lady here, Whitney. What's your last name?
Jones.
And what's your role in the organization?
I'm the head of operations at LifeCents.
So, what's Blake's reputation amongst the team at LifeCents?
Well, he's definitely known as a great leader and a mentor, somebody that everybody can go to at any point.
So he's like the company dad or something like that, huh?
Correct.
And people do you guys really enjoy talking with him?
We do. Sometimes we stay a little bit late just to talk.
Wait a minute. It doesn't sound like that. I mean, I read in the newspapers that, usually at work there's suing and there's screaming and there's yelling, but it doesn't sound like you have that kind of environment there.
Never. We go out for happy hours together.
You go out for happy hours with your boss?
We're a close-knit team.
Wow. Blake, where's that coming from in your background?
I think that...
Are you trying to create your own family here?
Well, I think to have a successful organization, you have to treat people like family. You have to respect them and really consider that work is a huge part of everyone's life.
Are you married? Are you married or single, Blake?
I am married.
You have any kids?
I have one son.
What's the similarity between being a dad and being the CEO?
I think being a CEO is a lot easier.
Well, okay, I'm not going to ask you why. And what's the best part of your gig?
Best part of
your job?
You know what? I love my job. I'm very fortunate. You hear the expression that if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life, and I'm very fortunate to be in that situation.
What do you love about what you do?
So one, I know that we are making an impact. From a company perspective, I think we do what we do better than anybody. I think that we have a fantastic team. Everyone's very committed, very passionate about this, and I know, and we all know that we are moving the needle to help improve people's lives.
John, did you have a question?
Yeah, you said as a kid you had an Apple IIe. Explain the connection between that and what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I've always had an affinity to finance and personal finance. So early on, the one thing that we did have in a time of limited means, because my mom was a teacher, we had an Apple IIe computer, which was probably, I think, the second computer they put out. But there was a little stock trading game that had the candlestick charts, so you could hit buttons and see things go up and down, but it really kind of piqued my interest, and that led me actually to get an undergrad and a grad degree in finance.
What was going on? You were in Turkey for a limited period of time. This is a number of years ago. What happened to you in Turkey that affected you?
Yeah, so I'm very fortunate to, at a time I was doing a lot of consulting. I was consulting with financial services companies in Turkey. At the time, Turkey was trying to modernize their financial services markets. So that meant bringing new products to market, products that had never been in existence before.
So how'd that affect you? What'd you see?
So there's a huge chasm between what consumers know and understand and their ability to make informed decisions versus the rate at which new products were being brought to market.
So you understood that there was a big difference between the opportunities that the public had to invest and what they knew. Yeah, how's that affecting you nowadays, or did that affect your development of this business?
Yeah, so I think that I think we do a very good job of anticipating where the market is going, and I don't mean the capital markets like the stock market, but the opportunity in financial wellness. I think we've done a very good job of really getting ahead of the curve and anticipating where we need to be to make the biggest impact.
Yeah, see, this goes back right to your childhood. I mean, I guess when mom and dad when mom and dad were divorced, there was concerns about money, and you really take it seriously, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, we had to be very self-sufficient. I mean, I remember riding my beach cruiser, a bike with no gears, riding it about 5 miles to go to a computer class, when I was in the 6th grade, just because, again, it was an opportunity my mom was able to open up because she was a teacher, but the only way to get there was for me to get on a beach cruiser and ride for, forever.
So you understood that, your nature was to go do whatever it took.
Of course.
But as opposed to the bad stuff I read about CEOs, I mean, you don't want people to suffer like you struggled when you were a kid.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen my mom, a teacher who went on to get her master's and PhD to move up and run the sciences for the Virginia Beach school system. As long as someone's Well, when you're working for someone else, as long as someone else is signing that paycheck, you do what you have to do. In a situation now, running my own business, same thing, where other people are dependent on me signing those checks, so we've got to do what we have to do.
You feel a great deal of responsibility to your team, don't you? As opposed to you get out of here, you're not doing the job, or I'm going to lay you off. It feels like you're really fathering everybody.
I think we're
Whitney, why are you shaking your head? Yes.
Because it's very true. He is, a mentor to us and is willing to put in the time to develop us professionally.
He's willing to put in the time to develop. It sounds like personally, too, he's willing to develop you. It sounds like he really enjoys his gig. Blake, what's the website address of this organization known as LifeCents?
LifeCents.com.
How do you spell that?
LifeCents.com.
We've been speaking with Blake Allison, founder and CEO of LifeCents, here on Executive Leaders Radio. Want help building your business with help from this show's CEOs? Our CEOs can help you uncover more opportunities, grow your sales, connect you, help you raise money, all the big issues, because our CEOs have been there and done that. They've succeeded in creating millions of jobs and earning millions of dollars, and some are available to advise you. Now, email mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. That's mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. The same CEOs you've heard on the show for 10 years may be willing to help you build your business, uncover new opportunities, grow your sales, connect you, help you raise money, all the big issues, because our CEOs have been there and done that, succeeding in creating millions of jobs and earning millions of dollars. And some are available to advise you. Now, email mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. That's mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Jason Miller, who's CEO and president of Zyedge. And Jason, what is Zyedge? Actually, I see a bunch of other... How many companies are you involved with?
Quite a few. I'm involved with ClearShark.
How many employees is that?
Approximately 70.
What's the next one?
Fuse Engineering, approximately the same size.
And the next one?
Fuse Solutions, about a half a dozen. And Zyedge, which will be known further moving forward.
And how many employees is that?
As Fuse Commercial, approximately 24.
And you're involved with a speed shop, aren't you?
Yeah, that's my passion.
That's 5. All right.
Correct.
So, where are you from originally?
Glen Burnie, Maryland.
And you're involved with 5 different businesses. You're originally from Glen Burnie, Maryland. How many brothers and sisters?
1 sister, older.
And what was going on with you when you were a kid?
Whole lot of stuff. My mom left when I was 10.
Wait. Your mom left when you were 10. So what happened to your relationship with your sister then, your older sister? She
really stepped in and took over the motherly role and raised me.
You were 10. How old was your sister?
5 years older.
So she's 15, as opposed to her going out and having fun. She's raising her little brother, huh?
Yes, and even when she did, she took me with her.
Wow. Okay, and then what happened to you when you were about in 11th grade or so?
I decided that it was best that I go out on my own and not attend the high school that I was originally going to because it was changing.
So you dropped out of school?
Correct.
When you were in 11th grade, going into 11th grade?
Going into 11th grade.
Okay, so mom left when you were 10, and you dropped out of school when you were going into 11th grade?
Correct.
Okay. And you're involved with 5 different businesses now, employing, it looks like, about 150 people or so.
Approximately.
You're pretty driven, aren't you?
I think so.
You think there's anything to do with the fact your mom left when you were 10?
I'm sure some of it's driven from there.
What else is it driven from?
Well, I will say I had a couple of mentors growing up, and they taught me the different elements independently to be straight with people.
All right, David, why don't you take it from here?
When you dropped out of school, how'd you get your life turned around?
I started paying attention to the people who didn't look miserable.
And you mentioned the green room. You enlisted in the Marine Corps.
I did.
And tell us how that impacted you.
Well, I originally enlisted in the Air Force. My dad told me I was not going to get what I needed there. So I told him if he didn't drive me to the Marine Corps recruiter that day, that I would not do it.
And what did the Marine Corps give you?
I could summarize it as camaraderie and the inability to fail.
And how do you use that today in your job?
I try not to fail, and I try to be reliable.
Okay. You mentioned also about your sister, and who took care of you, stepped in, lovingly, unselfishly. How did that impact you today?
I think it's a selflessness, because at that particular point in her life, she could have chose to not do that and left me to fend for myself, but didn't. And I think that is the selflessness that I carry with me today when I deal with my employees.
Mm-hmm. John?
Hey, Jason, so other than the Marine Corps, you had talked about a couple of your other influencers. The one was a Baltimore City police officer, another was a pastor. Can you talk about that?
Each one of those individuals let me tote along with me through life their characteristics that I observed over time. And one was, the police officer showed me how to be straight with people. Be honest. Be honest with yourself, and you can be honest with others, right?
How about the pastor?
Hey, he honestly showed me structure. He showed me structure. They had quite a few children, and they were very family-oriented, and that was something I was not around very often.
Fantastic. And you also, in the green room, talked about the fact that you had humble beginnings. So how does all of this impact how you treat your employees today?
I like to think of myself as one of the folks, a tool in the toolbox. So what you'll hear that are staples are, if you have a meeting you need me to attend because you think I can be beneficial, take me with you. If you're going out of town, let me know. I'll go with you. If you need some advice, I'm happy to sit down and give it to you. So I would say that's how I poured it. I treat people how I want to be treated, and I try to pay forward any information I can give to somebody to help them.
Well, what's fascinating to me is that, Mom left when you were 10. Your sister's raising you, and as opposed to you, and you dropped out, you had all the signs of getting yourself in trouble.
Oh, I did.
But you got yourself involved with the Marines, and you really found these mentors. What attracted you to these mentors, and why these folks?
I didn't want to let them down.
Ooh, what do you mean? What are you talking about?
I think everybody did see me at face value for the path I was going down, and I wanted to disprove that.
You didn't want to let them down. Mm-hmm. What's that have to do with the way you conduct yourself nowadays?
I still don't want to let anybody down.
Let who down? Who are you talking about?
Anyone who's associated with me.
Is that employees?
Anyone.
I thought the whole thing with employees is if they don't do their job, you just fire them.
I say you give them enough rope, and you give them the mentorship, and then if you do get to that point, you can look them dead in their eyes, and you can say it's because of you, not me.
So you're telling me that your middle name is giving the people what you got, which is really trying to mentor them.
Try to give them opportunity to excel, and if they choose not to, that's on them, and I can, with a light heart, make the changes that I need to.
You ever been involved with turning somebody's life around?
I have.
At work?
Yes.
You went out of your way to do this?
I wouldn't say out of my way. I just did what I thought somebody would do for me.
And why'd you do that?
Paying it forward.
So this was somebody that came to work that you spent some extra time with and tried to bring along.
Actually, it's a childhood friend who worked at UPS and hated his job, and he's a good person. I put him through the clearance process, and now he's a federal employee at an agency.
So this wasn't even your own employee. This was somebody that you knew personally. Correct. And you reached out to him.
Correct. And his skill set wasn't something that we deal with. So when we realized we couldn't place him, I helped him submit his resume to the federal government, and he was ultimately hired.
Because you just wanted to help him.
Correct.
Uh-huh. So how many kids you got?
Between my fiance and I, we have 7.
7 kids.
Correct.
And what's the similarity between your role as the CEO and dad?
I would say when I walk in the room, there's always somebody who has a question.
Tell me more about that. What do you mean?
I'm a strategist both at home and at work, looking for creative marketing, if it's to get our kids to do chores or if it's to incentivize somebody to perform.
So you're seeing a lot of similarity between your kids and the people that you're working with in terms of how do you get everybody to do what needs to get done, how do you incent them, how do you get stuff done, what are the creative solutions? It's all the same kind of stuff.
It's all the same. They're all human.
Uh-huh. So I got a question with you. At home, who wears the pants in the family, you or your fiance?
Oh, my fiance does.
Uh-huh.
Without question.
So you guys split up the responsibilities at home. You're comfortable trusting.
Yeah, she developed a chore chart that has thorough descriptions and reminders, and every kid has a chore every single day of the week when we have them. And her ability to lead and explain exactly what she expects is uncanny.
Sounds to me like your wife is like the Marines.
Her father's a retired sergeant major.
Okay. It sounds like you're going to have a successful relationship here like you did with the Marines.
That's correct.
Always
have since 8th grade.
What do you mean?
This is the young lady I took to the 8th grade dance and tried to court her for years, and we went off our separate directions. And when there was an opportunity that made sense, we were able to put it together now that I've matured.
I see. Okay. Oh, I see. So she really knows who you are. What's her first name?
Anne Marie.
Anne Marie. Huh?
Smartest woman I know.
And what's the best part of your day?
Going home.
What are you talking about? What do you mean?
When you go home, it should be representative of your hard work and what you've chosen to do with your life. So be it your kids, your hobbies, or whatever. If you've been able to be fortunate enough to be successful, when you go home, you can actually you can feel it, you can see it.
You had about breaking his.
Yeah, well, you took a hiatus for a while, right? And you said it wasn't as meaningful. Can you talk about that?
So I took a slight hiatus where I was attending high-level meetings and board-level meetings and leadership meetings, et so filling the position that you probably should at that point, being an operator and not just an owner. That's difficult, but when you're used to being the person on the keyboard or the person who is a doer, and now you're helping mentor and lead the people that are doing.
What's the website address of Zyedge?
It is Zyedge.com, Zyedge.com.
Because we were Jason Miller, CEO and President of Zyedge. We'll be back in a moment right after this break. We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Mercedes Lemp, Executive Director of My Sister's Place. Mercedes, what is My Sister's Place? What are you guys doing?
We support victims of domestic violence.
And how many folks are you helping each year?
About 500.
And how are you helping them? What are you doing for them?
We provide a shelter and transitional housing, educational programs, and supportive services.
Wow. All right. Where are you from originally?
From Madrid, and then moved to Bethesda when I was about 7 years old.
Mm-hmm. From Madrid to Bethesda. Okay. And how many brothers and sisters you got?
I'm the youngest of 7.
So what was it like moving the second youngest of 7 from Madrid, where you must have had your own little comfortable clan, let alone the community, to Bethesda? What was that experience like?
Well, the hardest thing was not speaking the language. I remember sitting in my elementary classroom and thinking, how in the world do they think I'm going to learn anything? I can't understand what they're saying.
Ooh, so it was a bit difficult, huh?
It was difficult.
Uh-huh. And what's that have to do with what you're doing nowadays?
Well, I felt like an outsider and that I needed support, and I knew that I could be successful, but I needed support. And so I find myself now in a position helping folks who might feel like they're outsiders and all they need is a helping hand to be able to be successful.
David?
What kids did you hang out with in junior high school?
In junior high school, I gravitated toward kids who were on the outside because I knew what that felt like.
And how does this relate to what you do now?
Well, so I know that I have the resources to be able to support folks who are on the outside, and they might just need a simple thing. So in domestic violence, a lot of times it's financial support, and it might just be 1 month's rent that helps a family get out of a situation.
John?
So at some point you moved to Columbia Heights, right? And you realized something. What was that?
Right. So when I moved to Columbia Heights, D.C., it was the first time that I realized that while I was sort of an immigrant in the U.S., I came with a lot of resources and support. And then I was introduced to Latin American immigrants who came here without support. And it really made me realize I could be them. but I just happened to be born in a different situation, and I really wanted to help them.
So then you went and worked for the mayor's office. What did you do there?
I did. I was the director for the mayor's office on Latino affairs.
Fantastic. And what did that mean to you, and how does that sort of relate to My Sister's Place?
Well, it was really eye-opening because I never knew much about city government or even federal government, but it made me realize how many resources are out there that people just didn't know about. And the only thing we needed to do was just to connect people to resources. And there were tons of agencies, tons of programs that are out there to help people, but people don't know about it. And so it's making that connection.
I can see you're lighting up even just talking about this. So you really like helping people, right? You helped the people in the hospice, doing fundraisers. You help the non-popular kids. You're helping people that have domestic violence, Latinos. It's amazing.
Yeah, and my philosophy or my thinking is that there's so many resources and so much support, and there's so many people in need, and really a lot of times it's just connecting the two.
How do you figure out what you want to spend your time on?
I think about where I can have the most impact. So for a while I was working actually in Montgomery Hospice in Montgomery County, but I had a long history and experience and connections and network in D.C., and I realized that I was much more valuable to a nonprofit in D.C., and that's when I actually came over to My Sister's Place.
You were working in hospice?
I was working at Montgomery Hospice.
So you're doing clinical care? You were doing clinical?
No, I was doing fundraising and, again, really bringing resources to the organization.
Why hospice?
It was something that I had dealt with my mother-in-law, and again, it was another eye-opening thing that, kind of had a real impact on me.
Why? What was so eye-opening about it?
I had never been in a position to see somebody going through the end-of-life process, and the way it happened with her through hospice was really gentle and gentle, not just for her, but for the family.
And so it sounds to me like every time you experience some sort of a difficulty and see a solution, you want to bring it to other people.
Yeah, and I think that that's one of the big things, again, going back to it's a matter of connecting people. We have so many resources, and there's so many people in need, and it's not for the lack of resources, it's just making that connection.
David?
You mentioned in the green room your father had a very traditional view of a woman's role. If you could talk about that real quick.
Sure. My father's from Spain. My whole family's from Spain. So growing up, he was the provider. My mother had 7 kids, was the housewife, and really, though she was amazing, she is amazing, didn't have the ability to go off on her own, and may have done that had she had the education and possibility to do that. And so for my sister and I, the youngest of 7, that inspired us to get our master's degrees and to be in a position to do our own thing and do what we wanted to do.
You married or single?
Married.
Kids?
2 kids.
How old are they?
20 and 18.
Similarity between being the executive director of My Sister's Place and a mom?
Yeah. Being there, providing the support to my kids and my staff, making sure that they see the value in what they bring, and not doing things for them, but providing the resources they need to shine.
What do you mean helping them appreciate the value they bring?
So, for example, my son is brilliant, but he wasn't the kind of kid who could sit in school. I allowed him to drop out at age of 16. He took his GED, passed with honors, went to a computer coding boot camp, and is doing brilliantly. But I saw where some parents may have said, you have to stay in high school, you have to stay in high school. I saw that he was smart and he was going to be able to do that.
So you're seeing people for who they are and supporting them through that.
Right.
That's interesting. How'd you learn that? Where'd you learn that? Oh, it sounds like when you were a kid in junior high school, the kids you were hanging out with, you saw stuff in them too.
Yeah, and I think I saw that in myself, because when I came to the U.S. and didn't speak English, I knew that, for example, in math class, I shined because math wasn't about speaking English. It was just about numbers. And so I knew I had the abilities, but perhaps because I didn't speak English, people weren't seeing that until I could speak English well.
So you're able to see what people can be.
I try to do that.
As opposed to the labels that get placed on everybody, for example, your son.
See what they can be and provide them the tools to be able to achieve what they need to achieve.
See who we can be and provide us the tools to help us get there.
Exactly.
But it's up to us to get there.
Yes.
But you're providing the support so that we can.
Providing the support and the encouragement to do so.
And the encouragement to do so. So is this at home or is this at work?
Definitely both.
It's the same thing to you.
It's the same thing. I have a young staff who I mentor in the same way that I work with my sons, showing them that they can do what they set their minds to if they have the resources. And it's just a matter of tell me what you need to do your job well. Or what you need.
Did anybody ever tell you thank you?
Yes.
Why?
I had a staff person who didn't think she could be an executive director, and I left a nonprofit where I used to be an executive director, and I convinced the board to make her executive director. She didn't think she could do it, and of course she did, and she was great at it, and now she's running her own nonprofit.
So you see the potential in folks. Ever since you were a kid, you began, you saw it in yourself and you wanted to bring it out in others.
Yeah, and I think that is really key to most people, is just having people that believe in them. And that, in turn, helps you believe in yourself and accomplish things.
And who believed in you?
Well, I would say I was self-driven, and possibly my older sister, who was not necessarily in the position my younger sister and I were in, because she was the oldest of seven, got married at a young age and didn't have those opportunities we had.
What's the website address for your organization, My Sister's Place?
MySistersPlaceDC.org.
Let me have that one more time.
MySistersPlaceDC.org.
We've been speaking with Mercedes Lemp, Executive Director of My Sister's Place, here on Executive Leaders Radio. Back in a moment right after this break. Want to help building your business with help from this show's CEOs? Our CEOs can help you uncover more opportunities, grow your sales, connect you, help you raise money, all the big issues, because our CEOs have been there and done that. They've succeeded in creating millions of jobs and earning millions of dollars, and some are available to advise you. Now, email mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. That's mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. The same CEOs you've heard on the show for 10 years may be willing to help you build your business, uncover new opportunities, grow your sales, connect you, help you raise money, all the big issues, because our CEOs have been there and done that, succeeding in creating millions of jobs and earning millions of dollars. And some are available to advise you. Now, email mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. That's mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Robert Peck, who's CEO and co-founder of Commonwealth Joe Coffee Roasters. Robert, what is Commonwealth Joe Coffee Roasters?
We're a Mid-Atlantic specialty coffee company, and we provide full-service keg beverage programs where people live, work, and play.
Oh, interesting. How large or how small is this company?
We're about 80 people.
And where are you from originally?
I grew up in Culpeper, Virginia.
In Virginia. And how many brothers and sisters?
I have one sister. She's 2 years older than me.
An older sister. What kind of sports did you play as a kid?
Played a lot of sports growing up. Hockey, basketball, snowboarding, soccer, taekwondo.
What was your favorite sport?
I loved soccer.
And what was your role on the team?
Played a lot of different positions on the soccer team.
You played a lot of different positions. Why'd you play a lot of different positions?
Played wherever they needed me.
What's that have to do with your role as, it says, CEO and co-founder of Commonwealth Joe Coffee Roasters?
Yeah, well, anyone that's started a business would know you got to wear a lot of different hats when you're getting started. And certainly I've had to do that, but you also can't win unless you play as a team.
So you see a similarity between sports, soccer, and coffee?
Absolutely.
Like, what is it?
Certainly the willingness to do whatever it takes to win, but being able to play as a team, the competitive nature, the burning desire to win too.
Interesting. David?
You mentioned in the green room that your parents offered a reward if you got straight A's in school, in elementary school. How did that affect you?
Yeah, it kind of made school like a game, almost like a sport. And, you really wanted to master the game to get the $10 or $20 reward for that year for getting straight A's. So it made me really want to win at school.
And tell us about your friends and what you learned from.
I went to public schools growing up and hung out with people from, both sides of the tracks and, spent a lot of time at their houses and just learned that, a lot of people come from different walks of life. But at the end of the day, everyone's a human being. And I believe that, people have good intentions.
And how does that impact your work today?
It's actually, very similar. At Commonwealth, Joe, we have a lot of, blue-collar production and distribution roles and then also, white-collar back office roles, people from a lot of different backgrounds, but we all play together as a team. We're family.
Mm-hmm. Hey,
John?
Robert, your first job was a barista. Who did you work with?
Yeah, I worked with my mother.
Yeah, and how was that?
Oh, it was great, and I still work with her today.
Talk about that.
Yeah. So when I was a kid, I was a barista, and she was the master coffee roaster at the coffee shop. And then she started her own roasting business, and then we started Commonwealth Joe years later to bring her coffee to market, and she's still our master roaster today.
That's phenomenal. Now, you in the green room, you talked about a pilgrimage you took to Spain. What was that all about?
Yeah, so I've been working, in systems integration consulting and then management consulting for a large firm in the D.C. area for 4 years, and I just thought, that wasn't what I was going to do for forever, even though they treated me really well and I learned a lot. I had this burning desire inside of me to figure out what my life mission was. So I did this pilgrimage in Spain called the Camino de Santiago for a couple weeks, went with one of my best friends, and came to the realization that my life mission was to empower thousands of people around the world to pursue their passions through business to change lives in the world.
Wait, give me that again, and how'd you get that?
I realized I wanted to help people like my parents, my mom is a coffee roaster, for example, to be able to pursue their passion through business to change lives in the world. And her motto was always building relationships one being at a time.
Tell us about this pilgrimage. This was in a fancy dancy car or something like that?
Oh no, it's hiking on your two legs for weeks, 20 miles a day with a massive backpack on.
So you're walking, and I believe the full trip's about 500 miles. So you're walking, and was the weather beautiful?
No, it's a lot of rain, and sometimes you get a nice day, but you kind of learn, no matter what, you get up and you go out and you start early. And you go as far as you can go, and then you meet people along the way, and sometimes they'll stay with you for a few days, and the journey, continues, and you have a lot of thinking time.
So why'd you do this?
It was that burning desire inside of me. I wanted to figure out, what I wanted to do with my life, and felt after working for 4 years in consulting, felt it was very comfortable, and that comfortableness really bothered me. I wanted to kind of figure out, I wanted to do something bold, and I wanted to kind of figure out what I was supposed to do with my life and the difference I was going to make while I was here on with my limited time on Earth.
So what'd you figure out?
I figured out, I wanted to really help. My parents invested so much in me when I was growing up. I felt like I had life handed to me on a silver platter, and nothing made me more proud than when my mom started that coffee business. And it was more of a passion project, but I wanted to see it be a thriving business success, and I wanted to see her mission come true. So, I figured, well, if I want to help thousands of people around the world to pursue their passions through business, start with my mom. So I came back from that trip, and that's where the business was birthed.
Oh, John?
Talk a little bit more about your mom. In the green room, you were telling a story about how you skied, then she became a ski instructor. You played soccer, and she became a soccer coach. And now I guess you're giving back a little bit, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of people take for granted, all the sacrifices and the love they get from their parents. But, my parents, now it all makes sense looking back. But at the time, I took it for granted. But, she was a Taekwondo instructor, and we, got into Taekwondo together. She was a ski instructor. She was a manager at the coffee shop and then a roaster. I got into the coffee stuff. And there were so many other examples. But my mom and my dad both, showed so much love to me and, my sister and later, kind of realized like, wow, there's, I have an opportunity to give back to my parents.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories of love, but that's amazing. And so how does that affect how you treat your employees now or your relationship to your employees?
Yeah, I mean, I think both my parents, grew up with military families. They traveled a lot. They had to make a lot of friends along the way, but they, treated people with dignity and respect, and that from all walks of life, and that culture continues at Commonwealth, Joe. Like, this is a place where, some people start off at an hourly job just getting back on their feet, and if they work hard and do good work, we give them increasing responsibility, and there's a chance to move into salaried positions and keep like rising with responsibility in the company. So I learned a lot about treating people well, with love, and thinking of people as people, not as employees that are just numbers and a means to an end. And I think that's helped a lot.
Weren't you doing that as a kid, hanging out with all the other kids where you were the only Asian kid?
Yeah, when I was in high school, my sister and I were like two of the only Asian kids in school, so we'd get made fun of a little bit growing up. But I didn't really ever stand it because there was so much diversity in our school. Again, I went to a public school and kind of realized people come from all different backgrounds. I'm from a different background, but I didn't have any control over that. And now it's something I'm proud of, my Korean heritage.
How old are you now?
I'm 32.
And what's the next step? What's the future looking like for you?
We've now we're getting outside of coffee and getting into other better for you beverages like kombucha through partnerships, and we're not just providing cold brew to offices, but we really want to provide better for you beverages where people live, work, and play. So apartment buildings, gyms, convention centers, and right now the business is from DC to Philadelphia to New York, and we're looking to expand that geographically in the future as well.
And how are you giving back to the community? How are you helping develop the community?
Yeah, I mean, I think one way to give back is, certainly through cultivating a good culture and creating, careers, not just jobs within our company, to allow people to really, to build lives at Commonwealth, Joe. And then I think every place where we're putting a kegerator vending machine or one of our kegerators, hopefully we're helping to, businesses to be like more productive and to fulfill their missions, or at apartment buildings, we're giving people access to beverages that are healthier for them, 0-calorie coffee, high probiotic kombucha, things that are making them like healthier, because we believe like wellness is so important.
What did your mother think about your wanting this to take that pilgrimage?
I think she was all for the pilgrimage, but when I came back and I said, "Mom, I want to leave my job and do this coffee thing," she's like, "I mean, that's really nice, but I mean, you have a nice job, it's really secure. Are you sure you want to do that? For me, that's a lot of pressure." I was like, "Yeah, I'm sure. I thought a lot about this."
Mm-hmm. What's the website address for Commonwealth Joe Coffee Roasters?
Kegvending.com.
Let me have that one more time.
Kegvending.com.
We've been speaking with Robert Peck, CEO and co-founder of Commonwealth Joe Coffee Roasters here on Executive Leaders Radio. As well as we've had the opportunity of speaking with Blake Allison, founder and CEO of LifeCents with Whitney Jones, Jason Miller, CEO and president of Zyedge and a bunch of other companies, Mercedes Lemp, executive director of My Sister's Place, and again, most recently, Robert Peck, CEO and co-founder of Commonwealth Joe Coffee Roasters. I would like to thank my co-hosts, including Joe Applebaum, Potomac Companies, John Yetman, Association for Enterprise Growth, and David Kunzman, Praetori Law, for giving me a hand structure in the questions, hopefully providing our listening audience an educational and entertaining show. What is the website address for Praetori Law, Mr. Kunzman?
It's PROTORAE law.com.
And Mr. Yetman, the website for Association for Enterprise Growth?
Enterprisegrowth.org.
And Mr. Applebaum, Potomac Companies? And it's PotomacCompanies.com. And don't forget to visit our website, ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com, to learn more about our executive leaders. Thank you for joining us today, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.